There's no denying that talking about race can often become heated, divisive, and downright uncomfortable. The Living Undivided show, hosted by Chuck Mingo, exists to be a place where conversations on race are approached with grace and empathy. Chuck is the founder and CEO of Courageous Love, a racial healing, solidarity, and justice movement launched in 2015. Through the movement, thousands of participants have been catalyzed into action. Each week on the show, Chuck introduces the audience to a guest who is a change agent, reaching across racial lines and working toward racial healing. These stories are examples of the grace, boldness, and courageous love necessary to bridge the divide in our country. This is Living Undivided.
Well, thanks for joining me for another episode of Living Undivided, where every time we get together, I want to introduce you to somebody who is doing that, who is helping us bridge the racial divide in powerful and, I would say in this case, creative ways. And so I'm in Chicago with Jon Ross. And Jon, just thank you so much for being with us today, man.
I'm just glad to be here, man. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, I got to tell you, the honor is mine. And so we're going to talk a little bit how we kind of got into each other's sphere, which is you did a Living Undivided cohort.
I did.
With a group in Chicago. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But I want to talk a little bit about you. So I was teasing our videographer because I said, is he more nervous when he's doing this with someone who has such experience in this space? And so you are a film creator, producer. You've been in this space, Emmy nominated.
I am.
So talk a little bit about your journey to get there. How did you get excited about film and what did that journey look like?
Yeah, so it actually started when I was like 5 years old. I was sitting there, I was watching Star Wars as a kid, and like, you know, you see all the special effects. Then I watched Goonies, and I saw the kids in the movie. And
speaking my love language, man.
Goonies,
Star Wars.
Oh my gosh, it was
Speaking
my favorite movies, man.
Yes.
And I would watch TV shows like A Different World and The Cosby Show, and I just thought to myself, like, this is something that I can do. And I come from a very artistic background because my family, all of them are musicians, right? So my mom's a singer, my dad is a drummer, my grandmother was a singer, my cousins are pianists and stuff like that. And we just grew up in a very musical family. But I wanted to do something that was different from them, right? And so like filmmaking was that thing, it was that passion. But unfortunately in my community, there was no opportunity for me to do that, right?
Talk about that growing up on the South Side.
On the South Side of Chicago,
Right.
And so my grandmother had
You say that with the South Side swagger, that kind of gives away that you actually did grow up on the South Side of Chicago.
I love the South. And the cool thing about this is that like I actually lived on every side of town.
Okay.
But you know, the South Side is where I call my home because I spent majority of my years there, right? And I'm very, very proud of the community, the legacy of it, right?
Yeah.
And just, you know, what I very, very much enjoy is that it's how much you got to go through just to come out of that neighborhood, right? And all of Chicago, the South Side of Chicago is not bad, right? But just neighborhoods I grew up in. But I just had this dream, and I used my grandmother's video camera that she got from her retirement party. So you're fine. Okay. And what happened was that, you know, as I started to produce these short films on her video camera, I found out that I was really, really good at it because I would invite people over to see what I was doing.
Wow.
And so after that, I said, you know what? I asked God, I said, is this what you want me to do in life? And I got like a definite yes. And I was just like, okay, I'm gonna go after this with like all my passion. Then I started setting like goals for myself. I said, okay, by the time I'm 20, I wanna be my first Hollywood film, right? And then by I'm 25, I wanna be a producer.
Wow.
And then after that, we see where this thing goes. And literally like, it was about like a few months before my 20th birthday. I'm on my way home and I just had an argument with my girlfriend. And this is before we had cell phones, right? And so I'm on the payphone, I'm like, you know, really frantic and yelling. And normally what I would do to kind of relax myself is I would go to the theater building at Columbia College when I went to college.
Okay, yep.
And they were holding auditions for the movie Ali with Will Smith. And so I went up there and I performed my argument. I had my girlfriend and he was looking at me crazy. And I was just like, look, I just want to be in a movie, right? I said I had a goal for myself that by the age of 20, I wanted to be my first Hollywood film. And so if that means I had to embarrass myself, then so be it. But I want this part. And then like 2 weeks later, I got a small part in the movie Ali. And that's kind of where my career took off, man.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So what was your part? What did you
I was a gas station attendant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so my lines, which got cut out, was, "Go champ!" But like I was so anxious because it's like, there's Will Smith right there. And he was so approachable. And I remember sitting in the gas station while we were filming, and he was just talking about all of his experiences and how he got into the industry and just like giving, tips and of how to get things done. And we had this great time while eating Krispy Kreme donuts and warm milk because it was really cold outside.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And I really do accredit him for me switching from being an actor to being a producer.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And so where did you go with that? Because you have at this point produced some films. So.
Yeah, a lot, yeah. And so like what happened after that is that I changed my major in college from being a theater major to film.
Okay.
And then I told my counselor, I said, all right, I want another movie to work on.
Okay.
And so they worked out where I can work on a movie, Barbershop 2 in 2003. And so it was 2003, I worked on Barbershop 2. Then after that, I just kept on getting, jobs because I was just a hard worker. And so it was Shattered after that with Pierce Brosnan and Gerard Butler back in 2006. Then I did a lot of Chevy commercials. And then I was supposed to work on the Tom Hanks film Road to Perdition because everybody else was going over there.
Okay.
And the Lord told me, no, this is the end of the line for you right here in this Hollywood lifestyle. And I want you to trust me, and I want you to not work on any more movies after this. And that was very tough.
I would imagine.
And when I went home, my wife and I had this difficult conversation as well. She was like, John, this is not bringing in enough money. And when you are working, you're working like 22, 23 hours. We got a baby, we're brand new married. This is not gonna work out. And so I knew what God was asking me to do. And so I made the difficult decision not to go and work on a film. And then maybe like a few months later, I got a call from a company called Urban Ministries, which is like the largest African-American Christian publishing company, right?
Yeah.
As one of the producers there, right? And so
Wow.
everything just kind of worked itself out. And then things just kind of kept on taking off from there.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. And there's a clear through line of faith. So talk about your faith journey. Because it seems like it started young.
Absolutely.
But talk about that.
Yeah, so I grew up in a very, very difficult environment, right? So my mom and my father were not together, got divorced when I was 6. I was jumping from household to household, and so I really felt like hopeless as a kid. And I remember being thrown into situations of where I'm experiencing things that kids should not experience. And so, whether it was growing up in a pimp and a whorehouse, and watching that and watching them taking care of me and not knowing that what they were doing wasn't necessarily a right thing.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like this is family.
That's the family you knew.
Yeah, and just seeing a lot of stuff that a child should not be seeing. I grew very depressed at the early age of 9, and I said, God, if you're real, like my grandmother said you were, I've been going to church my whole life. If you're really real, I need to see that you can change my life. And at 9 years old, I gave my life to Christ, man, and I was like the best decision I could have ever made.
Man.
And I've been walking with him ever since, man.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
And just to think about, being able to navigate that environment that you were in.
Yeah.
Just even that desire to turn to God is a powerful thing.
Yeah.
And we were just talking a little bit before we got on camera about just your family story as it relates to race.
Yeah.
Is a complicated story.
It's very complicated.
Yeah,
very
talk
complicated.
about that.
Yeah, so on my dad's side, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, who is my father's grandmother, she was a white woman, and she fell in love with my grandfather, whose name was Willie Ross, very dark-skinned man, just like myself.
Yeah.
And as she got older, like about 30 years old, she came down with what we believed to be, it was diabetes. But she was blind and everything like that, and she knew she was dying.
Right.
And she went to her family to ask them, for help. And her father, who was a white man, rejected that and burned her pictures and birth certificates. And so my grandfather grew very bitter because of that. And the moment that he got a chance to leave town, he cut out of town and never looked back after that. And that story has just been lingering out there with a lot of questions unanswered. But now that we're kind of going through this racial reckoning in our country, for my children, I just want them to hear the truth so I can help them process it before they become grown men and understand their story and understand where God has placed them on this earth for, to be kind of a help to bringing this thing, I won't say to it necessarily but to at least start to address these issues to try to make things right like God wants us to make it right.
Yeah, man. And so much of that is to what you said is the power of the truth, right?
Yeah.
And you know that from filmmaking, like there's a power when truth shows up.
Absolutely.
On screen, right?
Yeah.
That resonates with all of us.
Yeah.
And I know that your heart for this goes in a bunch of different directions, and it's one of the reasons why you had a chance to do a Living Undivided co-work because you're in relationship with a bunch of folks who care about this issue and are really trying to advance God's kingdom in the Chicagoland area. So talk a little bit about that. How did you get invited into the cohort for Living Undivided, and talk about the experience?
Yeah. So I go to a community Christian church where, Dave and John are the founders. And a lot of the conversations about race, I'm always open to be a part of, right? And that's kind of the journey of it, right? And so like everywhere that I try to go, I try to be a person that people can talk to and have honest conversations with. And I think that's kind of where a lot of the leaders of the church kind of saw that in me.
And maybe just to give some context for people who don't know Community Christian Church. Talk about Community Christian Church. What's the makeup of the church, the leadership of the church? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the makeup of the church, I mean, it's predominantly a white church, right? And that's one of the things that kind of drew me and my wife to the church. I grew up in a predominantly black church, and I was just looking for something different, right? And I remember when I first went to college, the first thing I really recognized about being around people that are different from you is that I feel like God has placed a bit of himself in each race. And in order to get to know him completely, you have to start to dive into those different things, right?
I love that.
And so
they're not there to divide us. They're actually there to teach us more about who God is.
More about him, right? And I think that, for me, I just got tired of knowing about this one side of God, right? And this is like almost like being in a relationship, and it is being in a relationship. It's that I don't want to just be in a relationship with my wife and just know my wife as this one person. I want to know her to the depths of her core, right? I want to know, how she thinks, how she feels, what makes her upset, what makes her happy, because I want to be able to please her. And it's the same thing with Tim. That's one of the things that drew me to the church, was that I wanted to see what was actually going on in a quote unquote white church. Right, and the first thing that I noticed of being at a community was Dave Ferguson, right? So my first day, we show up to church, and he's like sitting like right next to me on the very first day.
This is the senior pastor. The main guy.
And we sit right next to each other. We're enjoying the church service together. We had like small chatter with each other, and then at the end of the church, he gets up to I think to the benediction or something like that. I was like, this is the pastor. He's sitting right next to me, right? And I just wasn't used to anything like that. And so the humility of Dave and John is what really, really drew me to the church, and just the passion and the heart to really want to attack these issues, and have these very, very deep conversations is what really drew me to the church.
That's so good, man. And so he invited you into this experience, this Living Undivided experience, 6 weeks of having those conversations. What are some of the key experiences that you had in those 6 weeks, or things that stuck with you?
So the first thing that stood out to me was that I've been a part of many conversations like this and many, programs like this, and it only scratches the surface, man, and so like you have these conversations, people talk about the experiences, but nobody's really going really deep into it, right? We just talk about the experiences, talk about what we believe and what we don't believe, and then after 6 weeks, it's done, it's over with. You don't hear from anybody else, and everybody goes back to their lives. But this one was really different, and it was a very, very difficult thing to be a part of, right? And that's what I enjoyed the most about it, was that with the questions that were asked and the conversations that we were having, the videos we were watching, for me, I had to really sit there and explore my soul and see what was really going on. And one thing, this is the thing that I enjoyed about it the most, is that it wasn't just that we were talking about the issues. We were really talking about how are we really feeling when these things have happened to us? How are we really feeling, and what are we really thinking about the issues that are going on in the world, no matter what side of the spectrum you're on, and just really talking about it and having somebody listen. It wasn't just just talking for an hour and it's done. I think it was like 2 hours, and a lot of times it went over that, right? And which was cool for me, right? But it showed me that people were very engaged.
People wanted to be there, and they wanted to be in.
And to see how people really became vulnerable, I've never seen anything like that in a program. And that's what I really enjoy about this.
Well, man, I am so glad that you were a part of it. And one of the reasons is because, we talk about this in Living Undivided, like we want people to get activated, to do something on the other side of that. And you were already doing that before Living Undivided. And I think what you're doing is pretty powerful. So as you reflected on your experience of getting into filmmaking, you recognized those barriers and said you wanted to do something about it. So talk a little bit about what you started. You started an organization that's running after that aggressively.
So the name of my organization is called Somebody's Nobody. And it derives from me when I was a kid feeling like I was a nobody, because I didn't know where I came from. And it seemed like every place that I was at, nobody valued me, right? and until I found out that God really, really made me for a purpose, and that before I accomplish anything, then I'm already a somebody. And so what I wanted to do was provide a platform where people can walk alongside with people that are trying to go in the same direction that they're going in, and provide them an opportunity they will never normally get to be able to get into the film industry, but also get mentored and really start to deal with the mental health and the mental strain of this race issue that's going on in our country. And so we really target the inner city youth, and we partner up with them, put them with a mentor, and we put them to work right away and walk side by side with them. And even my wife, who is a counselor, she sits on the board as the counselor of the program. And so if somebody needs somebody to talk to and to be counseled to help process, my wife steps in and does that. So that's what we do.
Good. That's so good. Talk about what are some of the projects you've either worked on through Somebody's Nobody or Nobody's Somebody?
Somebody's Nobody.
Somebody's Nobody. Or projects that are kind of in the works that you're excited about.
Yeah, so right now I'm working on a story. I don't know how much anybody else knows about this guy, but this guy was like one of the biggest high school stars back in the 90s. His name is Ronnie Fields.
Okay.
And so we literally grew up like around the corner from each other. But like at one point in time, before there was a Kobe Bryant and stuff like that, he was like one of the biggest names in high school sports.
Wow.
And so he was actually teammates with Kevin Garnett when he was here in the city of Chicago at Farragut High School. And what attracted me to that story is that here it is, this kid is on top of the world. And nobody's really taking the time out to understand that this is a kid. And he's been thrown into this limelight. And what do you do when you have so much power at such an early age with no father to guide you or anything like that? And here it is, this kid, he gets into a car accident. Even though he recovers fully, he gets involved with a female that was white, and she accuses him of rape, and that totally derails his whole life. And the story follows him as he gets his life back on track. And so that's one of the stories we're working on. The next one is just a fun project of mine. It's called Sneaker-esque. And this is just about the love of the gym shoe here in the city of Chicago, but how race plays a part in how this gym shoe is sold all over the world, right? And so talking about how Nike deals with race and Adidas deals with race and all these other people. So those are the projects that we're working on right now that I'm very, very excited about. But it's also fun at the same time.
Absolutely. And in both of those projects and all the other ones you're doing, you're engaging young people in Chicago who wouldn't otherwise get these opportunities.
Absolutely.
Man, it is so good. So, man, how can people learn more about what you're doing and support it and support the work that you're doing?
Absolutely. So you can go to my website, somenobodies.com. So it's SOMNOBODYS.
Okay.
.com, and you can find out what we're about. Also, you can help us financially on the website, so there's a page for you to do that, and just upcoming projects. And so I also put videos on there that are motivational and are encouraging, so people that when they feel like they're going through a hard time, especially like now, we're coming out of a pandemic, and there's so much hopelessness going around right now. And so I really wanted to put videos up there to give hope and encouragement during this time for people to understand that, yes, we were shut down. But God didn't shut down, right? The kingdom of heaven didn't shut down.
That's right.
And you still have a purpose, right? And so it's to help people be encouraged to continue to go after the goals that God has placed in their lives.
Well, Jon Ross, I got to tell you, I am so thankful for the journey that God has taken you on.
Absolutely.
From 9 years old or 5 years old.
Yeah, man, 5,
to where you are today. And but before I let you go, we got to do the lightning round. We got to do some lightning round questions.
I'm
that's
ready
all
for
right.
you.
So, all right. So I told you I wasn't going to give you any prep on these.
I know, right?
So I got to ask the question. You're from Southside Chicago.
Southside, yep.
Nike or Adidas?
That's tough. So if I'm balling, it is Nike.
Okay.
If it's just outfits, I like Adidas.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
That's a fair question on Southside Chicago?
It is very fair.
Okay,
very fair.
all right.
Yeah, I got a ball on my Nikes. I
was about to say, you got to represent the Nike somehow.
Yeah.
All right, you're a filmmaker.
I
am. Best movie you've seen that you think far too few people have seen?
Ooh, that's tough. Because I've seen a lot of movies. You know what? I don't know if a lot of people have seen this, and I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I can't watch it a lot, but I enjoyed American History X.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. I just thought that for its time, it was really in your face.
Yep.
And people kind of glossed over it because they didn't want to have the conversation at the time. But I love the story of
What's
how.
What's the guy's name, the lead actor? I can't think of his name.
Norton.
Edward Norton,
yeah. Who I think kind of looks like my pastor, Dave Ferguson. But we'll leave it at that.
We have to do those side by side.
Yeah, I know, right? right. But yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Favorite place to eat in Chicago?
Chicago Chicken and Waffles on the South Side.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I have not been there.
Oh, you have to go there. It's on 41st, I believe, and King Drive.
Okay.
But it's really good, man.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Final lightning round question.
Okay, I'm ready for you.
You just told me Chicago just opened back up.
It did.
And so I'm going to assume over the last year you've not done all the traveling you wanted to do.
Well, no, I did.
You did. You did. Well, then maybe this will be an easy question for you.
Yeah.
Next vacation you want to take.
Oh, well, I'm leaving for Florida next week.
Okay.
But the next one I want to take, that's tough. I wanted to go back to the Philippines.
Oh,
because I love the Philippines. Mm-hmm. But if I had a choice, I'll go back to Sedona, Arizona. I love it there, man.
It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, I love it there.
Beautiful, beautiful place. Awesome. Well, hey, final question is not a lightning round question,
Yeah.
but I would love for you to just finish the sentence. What does living undivided mean to Jon Ross?
It means learning who our God really is through the people that he has made. That's what it means to me.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Well said, brother. Thank you so much for being
appreciate it,
with
man.
me.
Yeah.
All right.
This episode of Living Undivided is brought to you by Courageous Love, a movement on a mission to unite and ignite people toward racial justice. The show is produced in Cincinnati, Ohio. You can learn more about our host, Chuck Mingo, and the movement by visiting www.chuckmingo.com. That's all for this episode. Join us next time for another episode.